Hello and welcome to Rights and Recourse, a program that tackles constitutional, legal and human rights issues, bringing you information and analysis. My name is Dumile Matez. Remember, you can also be part of our discussion today by calling us on 011 714 5497 or 5498 or tweet us at Rights Recourse. Alternatively, you can email your thoughts to rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za.
The President is directed to appoint a Commission of Inquiry within 30 days, headed by a judge solely selected by the Chief Justice, who shall provide one name to the President. The President shall take all steps, do all things, and sign all documents which are necessary to give effect to the remedial action. Without limiting the generality of the foregoing, the President shall ensure that the judge who is to head the Commission of Inquiry is given the power to appoint his or her own staff and to investigate all the issues using the record of the Public Protector's investigation and the state of capture report as a starting point. The Commission of Inquiry is to be given powers of evidence collection that are no less than that of the Public Protector. The Commission of Inquiry is to complete its task and present its report with findings and recommendations to the President within 180 days. The President shall submit a copy with an indication of his or her intentions regarding the implementation to Parliament within 14 days of releasing the report.
Well, that's the voice of Judge President Dunstan Mlambo when he delivered the judgment on behalf of a full bench in the state of capture review. Today on Rights and Recourse, we take a look at the terms of reference for the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into State Capture to be chaired by Deputy Chief Justice Lawrence Zondo. To discuss today's topic, we are joined in the studio by Mr. Ben Tron, Chief Operating Officer of OUTA, and in our Cape Town studio later we'll be joined by Amabungane and with Karabo of Ms. Karabo Rajwili, Advocacy Manager of Amabungane, and Ms. Soli Mueng, a columnist and analyst from our Cape Town studio. Mr. Tron, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Good afternoon, thank you for having us.
The question is, we are now at a point where the Public Protector's remedial actions are being implemented. We will now have a Judicial Commission of Inquiry. And we have read and heard about what is happening down in the Free State, in Vrede, in a small town of Vrede. Are you satisfied with what's going on?
We're absolutely satisfied. This action that we see now is long overdue. Remember, it's been 14 months since the Public Protector have released the report, and there's been a lot of action trying to stop that report. And luckily, we've gone through the process. Now the Commission have been appointed, the terms of reference have been finalized, and what you see now, parallel to this, are actions taken by the Hawks and by the MPA to, in fact, start doing the job.
Many people would say that the delay in dealing with this project could have led to the hiding of evidence.
There are two ways to look at it. Number one, 14 months down the line, people could have hidden evidence. On the flip side of that is, it allowed new evidence to come through. Now, looking at the evidence being hidden, if you look at the server that has been seized or duplicated in the Premier's office in Free State, you cannot hide that. Once you want something on a server, emails and those kind of things, you cannot hide. They will be there. So that's one example. But on the other flip side is that if you think about the last few months over the last year, about how much evidence have come to the fore, the Parliament has actually gone further. They've got the ESCOM inquiry, and a lot of information has come through, despite the denials and the lack of knowledge that those people have displayed. The information have flowed through.
The other question for me really we are aware of obstructionism by those implicated. You mentioned the President taking the report on review. The President started by refusing by stopping the review, the report from being released.
This President has proven himself to be of low moral character. He stood up in Parliament, he stood up in the House of Provinces, where he blatantly lied and said, the Public Protector has not given me any opportunity to defend myself. A day later, a 4-hour interview is broadcast. That's the level of what the President is willing to go to stop himself being held accountable. The last year have been full of court cases. This whole presidency has been full of court cases. And we believe the things have come to a head, and now the time is to pay the piper.
Now, whilst we're waiting for our guests in Cape Town to be ready, the question I want to know, you have a great deal of knowledge around what is happening down at Vrede, and you have laid criminal charges against the Minister of Minerals and Resources. What is happening at Vrede? What's happening on that farm?
Let's take a step back. Remember, the Vrede farm was never meant to be a farm industry as what it is put in the papers. That was purely a siphoning process to get information, to get money and funds to fund other activities. Amongst others, one of those activities were the wedding at Sun City, flying the guests in, etc. What is very beautiful about what's happened at Vrede is that was the start of the blossoming of the empire of the Guptas. But that means that all the branches of the Guptas empire right now is built on poison money. So therefore, they are all very vulnerable when it comes to grabbing of the money, seizing of the assets, etc. What's happening now is that they went back to to the way it started. They've gone to the Vrede farm and say, this is a procedure of crime, therefore it's been seized. Now the documents associated with that, the money flows are now, the trails are now being followed, and wherever that money has gone, they will start seizing. Amongst others, it would be the Gupta's plane.
Let me go down to Cape Town. Soli, good afternoon. Soli Moeng is a columnist and also an analyst and somebody who looks at what we call reputational risk. Soli, I normally ask many people in South Africa this question, especially if they come to my program here. Do we appreciate the fact that we are a constitutional democracy and the actions of the last year or so against state capture have demonstrated the strength of our constitution, democracy and independence of the judiciary and the rule of law?
I think that, all brands, whether they're organizations or countries, homes, they have to be led by a leader who knows what he's doing. And unfortunately, South Africa for the past 12 years has not been led by a leader whose role what it was to teach South Africans what kind of country we are, to live the values of the Constitution. And because he failed to do those things, we still have too many people out there who do not appreciate that we are a constitutional democracy. They think that we are a parliamentary democracy. They think that political parties sit above the Constitution of the Republic, and it's not the case. So because we didn't have the kind of leadership that we needed in South Africa over the past 10 years, we've lost 10 years. 10 years to develop, that could have been used to develop people, to improve the lives of many people in South Africa, a lot of money that could have been used to make a difference in the lives of many people, including the ones who've just been discussing now, that disappeared from Free State. Somebody still needs to sit down and put, calculate, record the loss, the opportunity lost for South Africa because of the presidency that's now finishing.
Karabo from Amabungane is an advocacy person there. Karabo, the question I wanted to ask from you for a start is Amabungane have been relentlessly bringing out information as if the information was coming out of a pipeline. Where did this information come from? Should we say we've got good investigative journalism in South Africa?
Yeah. We do have good investigative journalism in this country, and I think to the credit of many investigative journalists, not just from Amabongani, a lot of the information which we see around the extent of Cape capture has been revealed. Now we know, for instance, with a story that's become very relevant around the Vrede dairy farm, that was an investigation which was broken in as early as 2013. And although the Gupta leaks eventually showed the extent of the corruption and the involvement of the Gupta family, as well as Minister Ace Magashule and the current minister's one. What I think Amabongani and many other investigative journalists over the years have been doing very meticulously and and with a great amount of veracity is in uncovering this information to the extent which it's now become a political issue. It's now become an issue which has captured the country in a sense. So I think the work of investigative journalists has put this information in the public domain and has made it impossible for our various prosecuting authorities, for our various political parties, and within political parties themselves to ignore the body of evidence which has been revealed.
Many would have thought, with information around, which is evidence in my view, why do we have a commission of inquiry? Why don't we have the state institutions that are meant to investigate and prosecute doing their job and prosecuting?
Very simply, the president has emasculated these people. He has carved out the NPA, he has decimated the orgs. Those are the institutions that are supposed to do the investigation, follow up, and then lay charges. And what he's done is he's filled those positions with his cronies. So there was a protection going on for the president and everybody who reports to him. And there are a host of people. We can only imagine that the great task, and I think Solly just spoke about it now, that it would be a good piece of work to put together the history over the last 10 years and what we've lost, because we've lost credibility, we've lost trust, we've lost our innocence, and that need to be brought back into thing. But getting back to your point, it is unbelievable how slow, and remember what the president did. When accusations were made that said deputy positions of minister was promised to individuals, his job, his responsibility, nothing less than that, to ensure that there's an investigation done to that. He laughed and said, "Why are you asking me? Ask the Guptas, ask Jonas. I'm not involved in this." He is in the center of this. He should have acted on it. He didn't. He is culpable.
A follow-up to our question, Solly, is commissions of inquiries are cumbersome. They take time. They take 6 years. Sometimes they take 6 months, 4 months, 2 years. And people, when the recommendations come out or the report come out, people have forgotten about this thing.
Well, the problem is that some of these commissions of inquiry, typically, they have to be briefed by the same people who should be investigated by these commissions. We've seen what happened with the commission on the arms deal. When it came out, finally, not all of the truth came out. When the commission on whether or not South Africa could afford free tertiary education came out, also the president sat on the report for many months. So all of this activity that happens around these commissions create more room for people to lose confidence, not to trust that the reports, whatever communicated, what gets communicated to the public is the truth. What was given to the president in this case. So it's true, a lot of money gets wasted on these things. A lot of money gets wasted also because many times the president chooses the people that he wants to run these commissions. So you cannot have a situation where somebody who is problematic is the one who must decide the terms of references of commissions and choose the person. So it's very good now that the advocate Thuli Matonse are so fit to say this time it cannot happen that way. Somebody else has to head up this commission, even though the president has to play a role in determining the terms of reference. But we are watching. The media is watching. The public is watching. The world is watching. Unfortunately, the incoming president of the ANC seems to be on the right side of the law, and we hope that if he continues to act the way he has been acting, at least to say the thing that he's been saying, to give space to the relevant state institutions to play the role that they have to play according to the Constitution, maybe things will become different.
Karabo, the other question is talking about the terms of reference. Are you happy with the terms of reference? Are they covering all the bases?
Now, the contentious issue with the term of reference was whether or not the terms of reference would adhere to the public protector's recommendation that the commission should only focus on what came out of the public protector's report and shouldn't be tarnished by potential scope creep. What we see in the terms of reference is that on the most part of it, the terms of reference are narrowly defined around investigating the revelations which emerge the Public Protector's report. We do, however, know that there are two provisions to investigate corruption beyond what was revealed through the State of Capture report. Now, Judge Zondo does have a level of discretion to make a comment about this and perhaps interrogate whether the terms of reference will be able to carry out the work that the Commission is mandated to do. So although there is a potential for slight scope creep, I don't think we should see this as a moment to completely discredit the work that the Commission has the ability and power to do.
Ben, the other thing for me is there were those, including the President, who were saying the scope of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry should go as far back as before 1994 and to look at malfeasance under apartheid. And however, it never dawned on them. There's a section in the Public Protectors Act that says you cannot change the remedial actions of the Public Protector.
In our mind, the whole idea of expanding the scope was to allow the Commission so much time that we will be sitting here waiting for 5 years, 6 years, just for a result coming out of that. We have to go back and respect and just acknowledge the work that the Public Protector has done. One day before she had to leave office, she releases this report. She built in safeguards against what she knew is a rogue president. You can look at the timelines, the way she wrote those recommendations. It is solid. Nobody could touch them. It is, he may not appoint the head of commission by himself. It must be done by the Chief Justice. He may not fiddle with the terms of reference. The timelines, 6 months. She narrowed him in such a way because she knew he is a rogue president. And we've got to sometimes we've got to pause and just show Advocate Madonsela the respect that she deserves, because that woman absolutely outfoxed this president, who is a fox himself.
Well, if you'd like to join us in today's discussion, you can call us on 011 714 5497 or 5498 or tweet us at Rights and Recourse. You can also email your thoughts to rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za. Stay with us.
So the issue of waves is that don't underestimate yourself. You are exactly the cornerstone of the solutions we are looking for.
To go and intervene and make sure that people respect the Constitution.
Now, if drug dealers are paying political leaders, then you will never get rid of that problem.
We need to see detail that we will not see further bailouts.
Fidel, a towering figure of the 20th century.
Stay tuned to PM News for all your news updates every Saturday and Sunday from 1500 hours.
I requested the Chief Justice to provide me with the name of the judge to head the commission. He has selected Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Mnyamezeli Mlungisi Zondo to undertake this task. I urge everyone to cooperate with the Commission of Inquiry. I trust that we will all respect the process and place no impediments to prevent the Commission from doing its work.
The President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Jacob Zuma. Let's take a call. There's a caller on the line. Good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Hello, it's Mr. Padiachi.
Mr. Padiachi.
Yes, I'm phoning from Port Elizabeth.
Go ahead, Mr. Padiachi.
Yeah, in connection with what I'm hearing on TV, right? People are blaming the ANC, okay? But it's not the ANC, right? The ANC,
the ANC?
It's people like Jacob Zuma and his grouped up people that caused the problem in South Africa. We can't be blaming the ANC. Ramaphosa has now taken over as new, okay? He is doing his job like it's supposed to have done. All they must do is ask Jacob Zuma to step down with his party, with his group.
Thank you, Mr. Padiachi. That's Mr. Padiachi. Don't remember us blaming the ANC on this program. Solly, Judge Zondo said he is under no illusion, taking what the president said there, that nobody should interfere with his work. But Judge Zondo said he's under no illusion that there will be attempts by certain individuals to potentially sabotage the inquiry. Should we be afraid?
Well, he's right to say that. Look, these things do not start now. There's a track record here. Mr. Zuma is very good at saying the right things in front of television cameras. He's spoken about corruption, about how he fights corruption, how he loves this country before. But everything that he's done shows the opposite. This man is able to look you in the eye and tell you one thing when he means something totally different. So I think the judge is correct to be very careful. He's very correct to be suspicious, but obviously, you know, the terms of reference are there. They have to work with the terms that are in place. If they do not sufficiently respond to the call made by Advocate Willie Matonsela, they have to make sure that they made the call so that the corrections are made. We do not want to end up with a commission of inquiry that's looking at a basket of things that have nothing to do with state capture, because this is what it's about. The report from Advocate Matonsela was the state of capture relating to Mr. Zuma's activities, relationship with the Guptas and all the other people who've enabled this thing to happen. So I think that the judge is making the correct call when he says, or the warning, as it were, to say that there will be attempts. The president is squarely in the middle of what's been going on, and he is fearful. Everybody knows that he fears going to jail, and it's in his interest, I think, that this thing doesn't succeed, or that they manage to divert it in whatever way they can divert, to make him appear to have nothing to do with it. But we all know he does. But no, we are a country that's driven by the rule of law. The processes have to be followed until all the proof that some of it has been put out there already is placed in front of him in a court of law. And then we'll know whether or not he has to go to jail or not. But I think that it's what Mr. Ramaphosa said in Davos last week is very important, that we have institutions in South Africa, and these institutions have to be allowed without political interference to do what they have to do. So the ball is rolling. Mr. Zuma must just respond when he's called upon to respond.
Well, we will be going down to Cape Town. I just want to take this call from Chris in Mpumalanga. Chris, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Good day, how are you?
Fine, thanks, how are you?
Very well. I think as South Africans, we should teach ourselves not to be emotional on issues. If you read the caption on the State of Capture report, Jacob Zuma as the president is at the center of this. The report says it was talking about his involvement and relationship with the Guptas in terms of appointing ministers, in terms of appointing DGs of SOEs, and also in terms of awarding contracts. So there is no way for those who are agitating for the State of Capture terms of reference to be expanded. That is not what Thuli Madonsela investigated in her report. So I would urge South Africans, let's sit down and read this report very carefully. So I think Zuma is right at the center of all of this, and it was a good call for Madonsela to make that he should not appoint the judge because he cannot investigate himself, because his hands are at the center of all of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Karabo, the other question is, the judge says, I will investigate anybody and everybody, no matter who he or she is. If they fall within the terms of reference, they will be investigated. Can we take solace from that?
I think we can take solace, but just going back to the comparison between the arms deal whitewash commission and the current one that is underway, the arms deal inquiry has been for South Africa a masterclass in how not to do a commission of inquiry, I think. And one of the key things about the arms deal was the failure to admit to present admissible evidence before the arms deal commission. So vital information was not presented before the commission, which would have been crucial for the commission to have done the work to expose and make proper recommendations around the wrongdoing and malfeasance involved. So what we need to really be looking carefully at with this commission that's going to be taking place now is not just, and I think again to the judge's credit, ensuring that everybody who needs to be brought forward as evidence leaders, witnesses and so forth is correctly brought before the commission, but also ensuring that all the evidence, admissible evidence, is brought before the commission. And one of the weaknesses of the Arms Deal Commission, for example, was a failure of the commission itself to admit evidence proactively, so actively go out and search for information which could have bolstered their own efforts. Something also to really be keeping a close eye on for this commission is whether or not the information which the Gupta leaks exposed will be admitted before this commission. We know that the Gupta leaks expose only came 9 months after the finalization of the state of capture report by Advocate Madonsela. So whilst Amabongani is absolutely confident of the authenticity of the Gupta emails, as well as these emails being able to under any kind of scrutiny hold up as authentic information, I think we really need to be ensuring or watching to see if the commission does take this as vital information which can really take the work and investigation of the commission forward.
Ben, we now have the commission, and as Karabo rightly pointed out and Solly pointed out to the Seriti Commission of Inquiry into the arms deal, first the terms of reference were narrow. Secondly, one of the judges named on the commission resigned, citing a conflict of interest. And then a senior investigations and attorney resigned. Evidence leaders resigned. Key witnesses withdrew with their participation in the commission, somewhat compromised this whole thing. What do we do? How do we avoid a similar set of circumstances with this commission?
Remember, the arms industry is an extremely dangerous industry. And I would like to believe that behind the scenes, threats were made, people realized that it's not worth their while. And I'm not justifying, I'm just illustrating. It's not worth my while getting involved there because people die. In the arms industry, people die. We're hoping that the security of the people involved in this particular deal, in this inquiry, is being jacked up. We hope that investigation is done about their security, all those kind of things, so that the people involved here can rest assured and their families can rest assured that nothing will happen to them. Remember, we are dealing with high-profile people, we're dealing with the president of the country, we're dealing with ministers, very high-ranking ANC officials, as well as a very powerful family, the Guptas. So money is not an option here, and where money is concerned, people die. And we need to be very careful of that. But we should not allow threats to interfere with the democracy and the rule of law.
Solly, we spoke about this commission of inquiry into the arms deal. For this commission of inquiry, we are all aware, without prejudging who Justice Zondo is going to get as an evidence leader. I said earlier to Ben, the important thing will be who the evidence leader is going to be.
So repeat the question.
What I was saying is the important thing for the inquiry is who the evidence leader is going to be.
Yeah, definitely. Look, the South Africans are watching the processes that are going to be followed with this commission. The world is watching. Everybody's watching. There are huge credibility issues about the country. This country has lost huge credibility in Africa, in the rest of the world. Now, how this commission is run, who the evidence leader is going to be, how the processes are going to be followed, is going to be analyzed almost sentence by sentence, minute by minute. So the Judge Zondo's own credibility is on the table. So he's going to have to come out and show that we have institutions, and when the institutions are given the opportunity to do what they were established established to do in South Africa, they will deliver to the people of South Africa. So we're watching all of that. Let's see how it unfolds, but let's not go home and sleep and think that the problems that we had over the past 10 years that have accumulated over the past 10 years have now finished because there's a commission in place. We have been bitten before many times. We don't want to be bitten again because we think everything is hunky-dory when it's not.
Michael Bishop makes the same point in a paper, The Accidental Good, the role of commissions in South Africa, role of commissions of inquiries in South Africa. He quotes another academic who says, Anthony Butler, who says, if they set up a commission, the public is satisfied that something is being done. Then 4, 5, 6 months later, sometimes 2 years, the commission still sits, as we saw with the Marikana Commission. I don't know whether Karabo, you want to come in here?
I think that...
Yes, let's keep it informal.
I think... Yeah. Rightly, there is a lot of skepticism about the utility of commissions, given our experience within the country of commissions which have whitewashed, which have exonerated individuals as well as politicians. But I think there's a number of things we need to take into consideration now in terms of the uniqueness of this particular commission as it stands right now. One is the context in which this commission is happening. We've seen a dramatic shift in power, which has meant that the kinds of the deep slumber, for instance, that the National Prosecuting Authority has been in around state capture allegations has finally been, the NPA has finally woken up to its own mandate, and we see some really important criminal investigations that are being pursued by the Asset Forfeiture Unit, which changes the dynamic around how the commission, the context in which the commission operates. And I think this should, although I fully agree with what Solly says about ensuring that these commissions are observed and scrutinized and line by line, the work of the commission is not taken for granted, or sort of we don't, shake our hands and say this commission will just run its work without actually scrutinizing its work. I think we can have some level of confidence in knowing that the context has changed. We have seen a very dramatic turn of events, which should give us a level of confidence in the work that the Commission can do. But again, I think we're going to have to be looking very crucially at the process around the setting of the Commission. The evidence leader is a very important point, but also we need to be looking at the kinds of budget that is given to the Commission. There are concerns about whether sufficient resources are going to be available for the Commission to do its work. Justice Zondo has already spoken about his concerns around the 180-day mandate which the Commission has in which to fulfill its work. With the Arms Deal Commission, it was given a mandate of 2 years and a 50 million budget, and this ballooned into a 4-year, 114 million budgets. And the work of this particular State Capture Commission is so much bigger than the Arms Deal Commission. So in terms of having confidence, I think it's about scrutiny, but it's also about ensuring that this commission is well-resourced and is given sufficient time in order to do the work that it needs to do.
Let's take this call from Jan in Amaskral. Jan, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Afternoon, Mr. Matthias.
Well, thanks. How are you, Jan?
Fine. Yeah, I want to ask the lady there, did she read the newspaper today? The Hawks are saying they are not going to use the evidence from Amabungani because it may contaminate or destroy their case. One. So, I like to honor her and his friend there that they may not be surprised because what I'm hearing is not about other people. It is only about Zuma. Trust me, my friends. You may find that Zuma doesn't appear anywhere.
Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you. I just wanted to say, to Jan's question, probably, Karabo, you can come in here. I think Judge Zondo, not necessarily the Hawks, whether the Hawks uses the emails to investigate, but Judge Zondo has room to maneuver in their commission. It doesn't matter what the Hawks are saying around the emails.
Yeah, that is correct. Yes, I did read the City Press this morning where the Hawks have said that they will not be using the Gupta leaks as part of the investigations. And correct, that Justice Zondo does not need to be instructed by the Hawks process on this. But again, it's to say a Commission of Inquiry occupies a different responsibility to a pure criminal investigation. The scope of its work, the kind of recommendations that it makes, go far beyond just a purely criminal investigation. And therefore, being able to admit as evidence the body of information that comes through in the Gupta leaks will be vital for the commission to carry out its work. Now, again, as Amabongani and other investigative journalists, we can vouch for the credibility and the authenticity of the Gupta leak emails. However, we do understand that there are due processes which need to be followed should a Commission of Inquiry wish to admit these Gupta leak emails as part of the body of evidence which they consider. And so we do know that the whistleblowers have given us a level of commitment which needs to be engaged on whether they'd be willing to come before the Commission to testify on the authenticity of the Gupta leak emails. And so I think Judge Zondo should look very carefully on this particular point, because the Gupta leak emails provide such a deep level of information about the nature and extent of state capture, which simply cannot be ignored by a commission which is meant to fulfill this work.
Before we go to a break, Ben, there's been this whole evidence, this whole body of evidence that we have seen coming out of, especially the Gupta emails and other evidence, and state organs entrusted with investigating malfeasance, including the Hawks, did not act in accordance with their constitutional obligation. Should this not be seen as a serious dereliction of duty?
I need to answer the question on the emails. What you find going forward is there will be a lot of hot air, there will be lots of observation, there's going to be a lot of noise with people kind of misdirecting all the stuff. We just want Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo to be focused on the matter at hand. And I want to assure the public and South Africans, we have the emails. We've had it authenticated. We can guarantee you that those emails are solid. So let's take that out of the table, because people will make a noise about that. Talk about the Hawks. We've spoken to the Hawks in September, October, November. We've asked them, why don't you investigate the utterances made in public? Why don't you respond to our cases that we've laid? We've laid treason charges against Zondo, as well as Zwane, as well as Faith Mutambe. We've laid corruption charges against a host of people. Nowhere are either the MPA or the Hawks to be found in the process of last year. We've spoken to them regularly. I can tell you that. We've got records of our meetings. Suddenly now they've come out the blocks and say, ignore the emails, it's more noise. Hogwash. They must do the jobs.
The other question I asked is whether these state organs not doing their job, as you have a constitutional right to lay a charge against anybody, and they must investigate and not ask questions. They haven't done their job. Is that not a serious dereliction of duty?
Yes. But they've taken the lead from their boss, the president. When it was public knowledge, where Deputy Minister Jonas at the time said, I had an offer on the table for 600 million rand. The president had the responsibility to lay a charge, investigate, and bring the matter to conclusion. What did he do? Not my job. Where do I fit into this? Is his words. Hey. Hogwash.
If you'd like to join us in today's discussion, you can always call us on 011-714-5497. You can always tweet us at Recourse, and also send us your email. Tell us about this program and many others. Stay with us.
C'était comme Bolale. It's live Saturday and Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
The positive thing about all the state capture process is that, one, we are now going to go to the depths of what corruption has been taking place in our state-owned enterprises. I think that is a huge plus. Two, we've got an independent judge who's going to look at all this. And three, this process will go along in tandem with the process that needs to be followed through by the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Rod. The Deputy President there, the President of the ANC, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Soli, let me come to you quickly. The President there, I think the last part of his statement where he says the Judicial Commission of Inquiry should go in tandem with arresting people, prosecuting people. Are you surprised with what's going on down in Vrede in the Free State?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I think, look, I'm very happy with a lot of what Mr. Ramaphosa has been saying in the past week or two. And he's really, what he should be doing really, apart from saying what he's been saying, he should stand aside and make sure that there's no sign of interference by politicians. President Mbeki was the first one to interfere with the NPA when Advocate Vusime Bikoli at the time tried to go for the late Jackie Silebi. And this is where we are at. Zuma took the thing and made it worse. Ramaphosa must show that he's the man who led the discussions to develop this new constitution and Bill of Rights that we have in South Africa. He should stand aside. His role is not to arrest people or to tell the Hawks whom to arrest or not to arrest. They must do their work. They must be headed. The Hawks, Sean Abrams must go. Tom Moyane must go. A lot of these people who are still heading the crucial state institutions, who played crucial parts in getting this country onto its knees, reputationally speaking, they have to be taken out at some point. There are people who can be taken out by politicians. If Ramaphosa takes up the position as president, he can reshuffle the cabinet and remove all these bad people out from there. But there are also people that have to be taken not by him as president because he cannot interfere in those instances. He must allow the credibly headed Hawks to play their role. This commission must be allowed to do everything, whatever evidence is out there that is relevant to enabling it to come in to tell us what exactly happened, must be put in front of the commission. It must be given the space to be interrogated, so that Ramaphosa's role is not to be seen to be going after Ace Magashule or that other person and that other. That is not his role. His role is to say, as a leader, as a political leader, we have institutions in this country. These institutions over the past 10 years or so have lost a huge amount of credibility. Now it's their chance to do what they're supposed to do. But I think that in South Africa we need to go further than that. We've tested our institutions since the early years of our democracy. Now we know that we've given too much power into the presidency, for instance. I think that it will be silly for South Africans to think that things should be left as they are because we have a new president. We've seen that our institutions, no matter how strong they are, the checks and balances in there are not strong enough to protect them from a rogue president. Ramaphosa could become another Zuma. Who knows? If there's too much power that goes into his head in 2-3 years' time, then what do we do? So we need to have the conversation about how do you ensure that the president doesn't have so much power? How do you make sure that you don't have foreigners coming in here to tell the president whom to appoint in what position and not another position? So I'm not surprised by what's going on, and I'm very happy that the good people in the NPA, and I'm not talking about Sean Abrahams, I think he was appointed to block these things from going on. Now he realizes that there's a new sheriff in town. He has to stand aside and let them do their work. I hope that they go on and dig deeper and deeper and tell the people of this country and the world what's been going on, and they must deal with these people credibly. This is what South Africans are looking for. They're not just waiting for a new president of the African National Congress to come and say nice things. That's good. I'm not saying it's bad, but we need action. We also need... South Africa is not just one political party. It's a multi-party democracy. It was designed to be a multi-party democracy, and it doesn't have to belong to one political party. We have to place our trust in the institutions that are there to safeguard us from the madness of politicians from time to time.
Well, let's take this call from Yandisa from Midrand. Yandisa, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Thank you very much, Dumile. Yeah, good afternoon to your guests. If I may just begin with what your guest, Solim Wang, regarding the powers of the president. I honestly, or in my view, I honestly think the powers of the president should never be tampered with. People must just understand where the mistake was. People are to blame. We are the ones who wanted Jacob Zuma. Well, for me personally, I never wanted the guy, but I'm just trying to assume responsibility as a South African. That's what you should deal with when you've made the mistake of adopting a wrong president. Deal with that president and leave everything else aside. Because what is going to happen when you get the right president that South Africa has been longing for? By then, you would have stripped off the powers, meaning that president automatically becomes dysfunctional. I think that would be the biggest blunder for the country. But my second point, I wanted to refer to the caller earlier. I think it was Supramani from PE who says ANC is not to blame for this, only Zuma and the Guptas. I think my friend down there in PE got it all wrong. We know very well the party that has always protected Jacob Zuma when people took to the streets to protest that he must step down. In fact, to cut the story short, in the very recent ANC conference in Nazareth, if you notice the slight margin between Cyril's voters and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, it is very small. In other words, you still have a huge number of those ANC delegates who still wanted to see Zumification of the country to continue, if you know what I'm saying. So I think my friend got it all wrong there to say ANC is not to blame.
Yandisa, thank you very much. You've got a gist of what you wanted to say. He says the powers of the president should not be tampered with. I think I agree with him, because despite the fact that many have been saying that it is a prerogative of the president to do this and that as per the constitution, whatever the president does in a constitutional democracy, it's got to be done rationally.
Bear in mind as well, there are checks and balances in the system. What has happened here is the checks and balances failed a few times. The courts, luckily, is almost like a safety net. And whatever failed at the top, the safety net was there, and therefore we could go forward. And what's happening now is exactly the safety net for coming into place to ensure that things go. I need to comment one thing, because I think that it's dangerous to go into euphoric state, because now we've got the state of capture inquiry going on. People need to know that the state of capture, the inquiry, the judicial inquiry only has the power to recommend. So in 6 months' time, nobody's going to land in jail purely because the inquiry said Ben Theron is X, Y, and Z. That then need to be handed over to the Hawks and to the MPA to follow through. So it's absolutely critical that the criminal justice system be fixed up before this inquiry is completed, because it doesn't help this inquiry going through 6 months worth of hard work, and at the end of the day you hand it over to the Hawks, and the Hawks sit over there for another 12 months before they're acting. It must be done expeditiously.
Karabo, there was a confusion as to whether the incumbent public protector had recommended that the terms of reference of the commission be extended to the pre-1994 malfeasance. I am not too sure whether the message was not communicated properly. I hold no brief for the public protector. But in my communication with the Office of the Public Protector, I understood them to be saying that there are a lot more issues that came out after the report was finalized. And these are the issues they were referring to, like the unburdening report of the SACC and the betrayal of promise report by the academics. I hope you got everything I said. I was a little bit too long.
You were a bit long, and I did miss some of what you said. Could you offer me a summarized repeat?
Well, I said the public protector's office is saying, they were saying there are a lot more things that came out after the report was finalized by Thuli Madonsela. That's what they were referring to, where they said the scope must be broadened.
Yeah, a lot of things has been said, and I I would prefer not to speak on behalf of our current public protector. But what we certainly saw in the public discussion and perhaps the interpretation of what our current public protector said was that the pre-94 state capture should be investigated, and whilst it may or may not have been specifically what she was asking for, it certainly was attributed to her and certainly became very politicized and popularized in that sense. I know, for instance, her work around the SAB lifeboat investigation, which Tuli Madonsela has started previously, has been one of the issues that she has picked up as a public protector. So in terms of this idea of scope creep and whether she was only referring to new evidence which has been revealed, if she was purely talking about new evidence which will assist in the work that the Commission must do to uncover the extent of state capture in order to make various recommendations, then that could be correct. However, if her request was for an extending of the scope of the terms of reference to admit evidence which was not the intention of the state capture report, then that would be an incorrect way in which to approach it, simply because it would then make the reach of the Commission far too broad. It would mean that the Commission itself would run into many, many years, and ultimately the pursuit of justice would be severely inhibited. So I think the reason why terms of reference in general are important is in order to really give a well-defined sense and direction for any kind of Commission to ensure that the recommendations do have a specific target rather than a generalized sort of vague outcome. So I think that's what you're looking for from the current terms of reference, to ensure that Commission itself is given a defined enough mandate to ensure that it can do the work to make recommendations beyond.
Thank you, Karabo. Thank you. My apology there. We are running out of time. When we end this program, we'll cross to the Hugh Masekela Memorial Service that is at the Johannesburg campus of the UJ University. This program will be repeated on Monday morning. The memorial service of jazz legend Hugh Masekela is underway at the University of Johannesburg Soweto campus. The event is a musical celebration of this legend, live during a range of artists he collaborated with and influenced and loved. Here is some of the tribute performances from the memorial service. Goodbye.
Values instilled in many of us. As many people have said, Umalum Hugh was a teacher, and that is true. What I'd like to do is share some of the teachings that he has shared with me. Some of the characteristics that I treasure in my experiences in Umalum Hugh. And in the interest of time, I've chosen 3, which I think for all of us as Africans is important to cherish. And because I know that Umalum Hugh's spirit is here with us, I will address him directly. Umalum Hugh, you've taught us many things, but what I thought we would do is to pick these 3 to share with young people of our country and our continent. The first teaching I take from you, Umalum Hugh, is integrity. Not integrity that is spoken about these days, Uguti, people are corrupt or not corrupt, but the integrity of conviction to a cause. Umalum Hugh, although multifaceted, there was never 2 Umalum Hughs. He was the same person. Nobody has ever said, I've seen 2 faces of Umalum Hugh. Umalum Hugh was of integrity to his music, to his art, the way he plied his work. Hugh Masekela had integrity to his loved ones. Hugh Masekela had integrity to his cause, to the nation, to heritage. The second one I want to talk about is culture of service, which many of us have lost. We hear leaders these days talk about I. But when it's time to account, it's them. I tried to think of many ways of expressing this virtue, Agamalum Hugh, of culture of service. But I think the better way to do it is by quoting him in a song, the very first line of a song in the album Time, a song called Send Me, Tuma Mina. And those that speak Zulu will know Guti Tuma Mina has much more depth than Send Me. He says, and I quote, I want to be there when the people start to turn it around, when they triumph over poverty. I want to be there when the people win the battle against AIDS. I want to lend a hand. I want to be there for the alcoholic. I want to be there for the drug addict. I want to be there for the victim of violence and abuse. I want to lend a hand to Mamina Ngizoya. He goes further and says, Ebu Sugu to Mamina. Nasemini to Mamina. There is no better way to describe his sense of service. I want also to talk about what Umalum Hugh, the virtue that Umalum Hugh was so committed to that he decided to institutionalize it so that it could outlive him. And that is Africa and heritage. Umalum Hugh had believed, let me step back and tell an anecdote of when, for many years, Umalum Hugh had been soliciting my views and many other people's views on the issue that he was passionate about, which was this issue of heritage. I remember one time we were at our home, and as usual, Ulizwe, my good wife, had laid a spread. I'd been training that morning, so I was starving, being lambil. Umalum Hugh, who figure in his persuasive walk and persuasive self, and not really interested in the meal, but wanting to bite my ear off about this issue of heritage. Ngimamele about heritage, and we're discussing it back and forth. Umalum Hugh is not interested in eating. Heritage, 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 heritage. After a while, I said, in my mind, I wanted to say to Umalum Hugh, I think, but I remembered the well-famed story when Uncle was performing and there was somebody at the bottom of the stage eating. Umalum Hugh turned around to his band and stopped the band. And he said, Tatu good lagwa puma. Hamba. I said, La, manga kuluma no gudla. Manga kuluma no gudla, ngizoxoshwa endlini yami. Umalum Hugh was really committed to this cause. And he genuinely believed that unless we invest in pulling up our heritage,